An idea has the power to change the world. Colonel John Boyd had the idea that an aircraft's ability to dominate aerial combat could be quantified as an engineering problem. And then he solved that problem as his energy maneuverability equation. He used that idea as an instructor at the Air Force Fighter Pilot School at Nellis Air Force Base, where he was known for a standing bet against all comers. Starting with an attacking plane on his tail, he could turn the tables and defeat any pilot in less than 40 seconds. 42nd Boyd never lost that bet. His energy maneuverability idea became the foundation for the then radical design of the F-16 aircraft. And after that, it became the basis for the design of fighter aircraft all around the world. And his idea also produced the manual used to train Air Force fighter pilots at air forces all around the globe as well. So his idea changed two worlds: aerial combat strategy and fighter aircraft design. An idea has the power to change the world, but ideas are transformed to reality through people. And the people who make this happen are thought leaders. Thought leaders harness two compelling forces: ideas and leadership. Thought leaders generate compelling new ideas, and then they transform them into reality through a vision, conviction, and the ability to inspire others to action. I didn't start my career as a thought leader. It took me decades before I learned to understand and embrace the role. Why did it take me so long? Honestly, I was afraid I wasn't smart enough, and I didn't know how to transform my thoughts into powerful ideas. As a result of my struggle, I've learned that anyone can be a thought leader, whether you're an organizational leader or whether you lead technical programs, whether you're a supervisor or a researcher, or whether you're on one of the many support, functional, or operations teams that are essential for accomplishing the AFRL mission. All of you can be thought leaders. Leadership is the first call out in the AFRL tagline, and thought leaders are essential for every part of what we do in AFRL. So what do thought leaders do? What makes them different? I'm going to describe three essential ingredients to thought leadership. First, thought leaders ask questions. Thought leaders ask questions that look at problems from a different perspective. Asking a question differently is like finding a new path to the top of a mountain. The obvious paths don't work. They're too difficult or too dangerous. But asking a new question is like finding a hidden path to the top through a secret valley. You might ask, how do you ask questions differently? You can start with simple questions like why or how, and then build from there. You might ask, what's missing, or how else can we frame the problem? Or you might ask, what's the problem we're really trying to solve, really? Be inquisitive. Look around corners. Turn over rocks. Keep asking and thinking until you find the question you're looking for, the question that will help you solve your problem. And though the questions might be simple, sometimes they can challenge the impossible. For many years, I worked on metallic glasses. Metallic glasses are metallic alloys with a non-crystalline atomic structure, and they have exceptional properties. For example, they're the best soft magnetic materials ever produced, and so they're used to make high-efficiency power transformers and for a wide range of electronic devices. But their atomic structure was completely unknown. And without understanding their atomic structure, we couldn't predict which alloys would form metallic glasses and what properties they would have. Material scientists struggled for 40 years asking questions about the atomic structure of metallic glasses. And the way they asked the question had been studied by mathematicians for almost a century, only to conclude that it was an impossible problem. In my research, I asked questions the same way, and I got nowhere. And then one day I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, jet-lagged in a hotel room in China, and I had the inspiration to ask the question differently. And when I asked the question differently, the answer came to me immediately. I was so excited, I jumped out of bed and I began scribbling down ideas. After years of thinking about the problem, all the answers started to fall into place. 3 hours later, when the conference began, I had 17 pages of notes written down. After a year to think through the details, I published that idea, and the scientific community now knows more about the atomic structure of metallic glasses than any other glassy material. That idea has had a major impact on the scientific community all over the world and is right now providing new opportunities for the Department of Defense. So I want to challenge each of you. I want to challenge each of you to think about a problem you're trying to solve and to practice looking at it differently. Ask different questions. Challenge the status quo. Keep practicing. You don't need to be jet lagged to make a breakthrough on your problem. Second, thought leaders think. Thinking is essential to develop compelling new ideas with the power to change the world. Probably the biggest barrier to thinking at all is simply finding the time to think. So let me ask a question. Please raise your hands. How many of you feel you don't have enough time to think? If you don't feel alone. I've talked to colleagues all over the world, and all of them have the same problem. And me too, I've struggled with this in my career. I knew I needed thinking time to generate ideas for my work, but that time just never seemed to be available. The idea eventually came to me to schedule thinking time in my calendar before it became clogged with less important but time-critical activities. Now, does that sound like such a crazy idea? As I practiced with this idea, I found it was important to schedule large blocks of thinking time. It takes time to focus our brains on big projects. It can take up to an hour just to get started. So when I'm working on a large project, like writing a paper or a report, building a new strategy, or working on my Inspire talk, I'll schedule at least 4 hours. And usually I'll schedule one whole day for my thinking projects. And sometimes I'll schedule 2 or more days back to back. When I started doing this, initially I felt guilty about doing it. But don't be shy. This is really, really important. And AFRL has sabbatical programs for intense thinking projects. In my career, I've taken sabbaticals as short as a month and as long as a year to refresh my thinking, to work with other thought leaders all over the world, and to develop new directions of thought. So this stone wall gives another way to think about big blocks of thinking time. Thinking is the foundation that gives shape and substance to a successful career. It's the large stones in this wall. Meetings, travel, emails is the mortar. It's much more fluid, and it can fill every nook and cranny in your calendar if you let it. But if you build your wall through the disciplined, careful placement of big blocks of thinking time, held together with carefully placed mortar, you'll have a successful career. Another major challenge is that I often found that I canceled my own thinking time when something else came up. Sometimes it was a non-scheduled meeting or a last-minute visitor. Sometimes it was an urgent request from management. Over time, I learned an important lesson. I learned to honor a commitment that I made to myself as firmly as I honor commitments I make to other people. There are other ways to respond to last-minute requests that are professional and effective while still protecting your thinking time. And then finally, not all thinking can be scheduled, especially the creative stuff. My most creative ideas come when I'm doing something else, exercising, doing a hobby, taking a shower, just after I wake up or just before I fall asleep. This has been known anecdotally for centuries. Archimedes, Newton, and Einstein all had eureka moments when they were distracted. And scientific studies now confirm that all of us are better at generating new insights when our minds wander, when they're free to subconsciously sift and connect our thoughts to give surprising new insights. You can't be a thought leader without devoting significant amounts of time to thinking. I challenge each of you to do this. What's the biggest problem in your work? I challenge you to schedule time to begin thinking deeply about that problem and to begin seeking solutions. Finally, thought leaders act. After questions and thinking comes action to establish bold new ideas. And for thought leaders, this is the action of exploration. Explorers have vision, courage, and determination. They take personal risks and they overcome fear of the unknown to open new areas of study and to uncover new ways of doing business. You might ask, how can you tell a bold question from an ordinary one? Here's a simple question you can ask yourself. Does it change the way that people think or act? Or does it simply confirm or extend existing ideas? And once you find a bold new idea, how do you find the courage to act? There are two common barriers. The first is the fear that it can't be done, or that you can't do it, the fear of failure. There is no magic cure for fear, but action is as close as you'll come. And action combined with faith and courage are unstoppable. Even if you don't feel you have faith and courage, act anyways. You might find out later on that you do, when some of your colleagues tell you that they admire you for your courage to act. I work on the hottest materials for the Air Force. The stakes are huge. The Air Force uses as much jet fuel as some small countries. And each year when we pull up to the fuel pump, at the end of the year, our bill is $9 billion. Hotter engines save money by getting better gas mileage, and they also increase range, speed, and acceleration. Decades of intensive studies by scientists all over the world have failed to develop the new high-temperature alloys that we need for this objective. But a new idea is available that may take us where we dreamed of going. This new idea changed a 5,000-year-old paradigm on developing alloys. The old idea began with the Bronze Age, and that idea starts with a single pure element as an alloy base, and then it adds small amounts of one or two other elements to improve the properties. And this is the approach that we've used for 5,000 years. However, we've now exploited all of the elements as alloy bases, and there are no new alloy bases to give us significantly better properties. This new idea is called high-entropy alloys, and it forms a new alloy base by concentrated blends of 3 or more elements that gives a jumbled atomic structure that might have significantly different properties. More importantly, this new idea provides over 592 billion new alloy bases to explore. If these new alloy bases covered the surface of the planet Earth, after 5,000 years of study, we've explored an area about the size of this auditorium. We'd better get moving. So this new idea screams for exploration, but after 6 years, scientists were still studying the first out of the 592 billion new alloys. It was like buying the Louisiana Territory and then never leaving New Orleans to go explore it. And so Oleg Senkoff and I, another thought leader in our team, decided to act by exploring new combinations of elements never blended together before. And we worked against the face of adversity. We submitted this idea for funding and it was rejected 3 times. We did the work anyways. Others soon followed our lead and began mixing together other combinations of elements to achieve other properties. And as a result of our action, there are now 3 game-changing systems within the Air Force that are considering our new high-temperature alloys. Thought leaders explore new areas through action. So I want to ask you, what are the bold new ideas in your area, and what are the actions that you can take to move it forward? I firmly believe that all of you can be thought leaders right now without waiting 25 years like I did. So I've got 3 challenges that I want to leave you with. First, I challenge each of you to practice the art of looking at a familiar problem from unconventional, even odd angles. Turn the problem around, ask questions differently, and see if you can make some progress. Second, I challenge each of you to take control of your calendar in the name of deep thinking. Start small, pick just one day a week and block out 2 hours to do your thinking work. And when you find that your schedule doesn't fall apart as a result, you'll be ready to start growing your scheduled thinking time. And then finally, I want you to find an unexplored area in your work, and I want you to go there. It doesn't have to be the biggest challenge in your organization. Start small and act. The key isn't the size of the problem, it's the newness of what you'll uncover when you go there. And if you do find a really big problem, you'll be ready to take it on. Thank you.